Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me and he's listening. Me and Franklin. We are going to be talking about Mars retrograde starting June 26th until August 28th, I believe. Let me check. Okay, June 26th, 2018 until August 27th. But Mars currently, at the time that I'm filming this video, is sitting in the sign of Aquarius. But what happens is when Mars goes retrograde, that means he starts taking steps back. Now, in order for us to understand what this is going to mean for you and what you can expect, what we want to do, number one, is look to see what Mars represents and what type of energy it brings into your chart. The next thing we want to do is see where Mars is currently transiting your chart and what house it's moving through, because that's going to show where that energy is being directed. And then as we move forward, this is why you want to be a subscriber of the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see how Mars is aspecting certain stuff. And because we had this conversation now, you'll be able to know and predict and understand how and why Mars is doing what it is that it's doing in your life. So let's go ahead and get started. Mars rules our drive, our ambition, our motivation. It's what we desire and how we go about achieving and accomplishing what it is that we want. Mars is connected to the energy of war. So it's our fight or our flight. Do we run into rescue or run into achieve something, or do we kind of be like, ooh, I don't know, and kind of hesitate? So when Mars is retrograde, the energy of that planet is, in a lot of ways, my favorite way of describing is it kind of dials down. It kind of pumps the brakes a little bit. So what ends up happening is that these projects and these things that you are working so hard to achieve and to accomplish and to build upon, especially as during this time as Saturn is retrograde and Pluto is retrograde, and Uranus had moved into the sign of Taurus, a lot of things are being restructured. Meanwhile, Mars is moving into new territory when it moved out of Capricorn, which was all about building long term, into new territory, which is all about when it moved into the sign of Aquarius, which wants to do different. So I was saying that a lot on the YouTube channel and to my tribe, which is Mars represents do, Aquarius represents different. So I was putting the two of those together and I was saying, you want to do different. I actually had this conversation with a friend earlier today, and we were talking about our own progress in our lives. And in order for you to achieve something different and to achieve a different outcome, you have to do something different, which would push you outside of your comfort zone. So for many of you up until this point, you've been kind of like treading in these unknown territories, this murky water, not knowing what's in your environment and what's ahead, or maybe even where it is that you're going, because a lot of you are trusting, you're going with the flow of the universe, and some of you are trying to get to a certain destination and you're trying to swim to that destination, but you're not sure if you're going to be able to get there or what is going to happen, but you just know that you're working towards it. In a lot of ways, when I say swim, I'm talking about this physical action, this physical activity, because Mars is connected to physical activity. So it's not what we're thinking, that's more Mercury. It's not what we're feeling, that's the moon. It's what we're doing. What are we actively doing in order to achieve this end desire, this end goal, this end result? So when Mars goes retrograde, what it ends up doing is it ends up taking steps back. But not only is this a chance for you to revisit those old projects, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but what I see is for many people kind of scaling back and dialing down, and maybe instead of like hitting the gas so much, even if you wanted to hit the gas, because for many of you guys, you're going to be very, you still have a high level of motivation. What I've noticed is that when planets go retrograde, human beings, us here on Earth, if we're not in tune with the energy and if we're not working with the energy, we will sense that there is a hesitation, we'll sense that there is a blockage, and instead of respecting it, we'll go in even harder. And what ends up happening is we hit our heads up against a brick wall left and right, and then we get so frustrated. When Mars goes retrograde, this is a chance for you to kind of take a break, to take a pause, to return your energy and revisit how you are reacting to things, how your method for achieving your desires. And then in a lot of ways, your desire may actually shift and change, because as energy changes and as the planets change, your motivation, your ambition, what it is that you wanted originally may change as a whole, or it may shift in some way. So when Mars goes retrograde, instead of going at it one way specifically, we kind of look at, okay, what have I done before? What have I done so far, and how has it served me? Do I want to continue to go on this way? I want to create a plan. So when Mars is direct, when it's moving in, not in retrograde motion, when it's moving normally, this is when we're like, all right, hit the gas, let's keep it going, let's keep these wheels rolling. But when Mars goes retrograde, it's a time and a chance and a moment where either you, well, in a lot of ways you're forced to, but I want to encourage you guys to work with the energy of the planets and not fight against them. When you fight against the retrograde periods and you don't honor their energy and what it is that they're trying to do for you, you end up exhausting yourself, you end up doing too much, you end up getting blockages and wasting that energy instead of waiting for the opportune moment. Astrology is all about perfect timing, and you can see when a door is going to open and when to react and when to just kind of sit down and just chill for a minute. So when Mars is retrograde, what we're doing is we're revisiting how we do. We're revisiting what we have done, and we are then given the chance and the opportunity to pick up old desires, pick up old projects, and in a lot of ways for many of us, just kind of relax. Interestingly enough, for me, I am in tune with myself, I'm in tune with my vibe, I'm in tune with the planets and the cosmos and with my own personal magic. So of course I decided right before Mars goes retrograde that I'm going to put my shop on vacation mode. And interestingly enough, the day that Mars goes retrograde is the day that my official vacation starts. So does this mean that I have a lack of love and desire and ambition and motivation for running my shop and doing what it is that I love? Absolutely not. My motivation is still very high, but I know when to chill back, I know when to relax, and I know when to kind of take that time to just not even think about it, but like revisit what has happened and then tweak, so that my energy when Mars goes Mars goes direct is at an all-time high level, and I'm unbeatable, I'm unstoppable. The biggest image that comes to me every single time when I'm talking about Mars retrograde is I think about a spaceship, and I think about the engines all shooting on, and I think when Mars is direct, the spaceship, the space shuttle, turns all its engines on, and there's fire that shoots from the bottom, and the rocket ship goes sends out into outer space. When Mars is retrograde, this is when we have already started that engine, we're out into space, but we turn the engines off just so we can float for a minute and just chill for a second. There's been a lot that's been happening in the majority of our lives. Most of us have been going through really tense transformation and new developments coming in. In a lot of ways, they have tested us, but you can sense and tell that's for the positive. But when Mars goes retrograde, this is a chance not to freak out, not to be like, okay, I'm going to lose my ambition, I'm going to lose my desire. You're not going to. Your desire, your ambition, and movement is still going to happen, but it's just not as aggressive. You're giving yourself the chance and the space to relax and to build up and to accumulate energy again, because Mars needs to be strong. So on August 12th of 2018, Mars will then exit out of Aquarius and move into the sign of Capricorn. So at one point there is a huge dance that Mars was doing where it was like coming in, going out in the sign of Capricorn and aspecting certain planets at that time. And what was happening is that it was triggering long-term progress, because Capricorn is all about your long-term investments. It's all about what it is that you're working to build for longevity. What's the structure, what's the foundation, what are you committed to, what are your responsibilities? So when Mars goes back into the sign of Capricorn, which again, like I said, is going to be happening on August 12th, this is a chance for you again to look at how you are handling and managing your responsibilities and your commitments. The things that you have committed to yourself to up until this point, do they still have your full desire? Do they still have your motivation and your ambition? Mars loves the sign of Capricorn, so this is a great time on August 12th to kind of revisit, okay, what do does this feel right? If and what I love too is that, let's say there's an old project that you started when Mars was sitting in the sign of Capricorn. This was it this year? I can't remember. I think it was this year. Yeah, it was. But was there a project that I started during that time that had a lot of potential, but for whatever reason, because of life, because of circumstance, I had to give it, you know, put it on the back burner or put it on hold? This is a great time for you to revisit it, especially in the sign of Capricorn, because it gives you a chance, a second chance, to work it again, to work your magic with it, and to see what you can infuse back into it and take it seriously again. When Mars is in the sign of Aquarius, again, this is about, for a lot of people, it's about, you'll see action on community service projects. Many people are coming in out of the woodwork as advocates. We're seeing that a lot with like the immigration type of policy type of stuff, because our core values are being questioned. So during this time, this is an amazing time for us to question our things that we have an alliance with, the things that we're passionate about, but that we are advocating for, that we will defend, even though it has nothing to do with us, or maybe it does, but we become passionate advocates for it because we can see the suffering and the plight of others. So when Mars goes retrograde, it's just a time for us to revamp and tweak, and we'll see that in our government, but you'll also see it in your day-to-day life, where you're going to start expanding out of old territories, or this new territory that you walked into when Mars first entered into the sign of Aquarius. This is a chance for you to be like, okay, let me take a break from this group. Let me take a break from exploring the unknown and the unnameable. I kind of want to just chill for a minute and just sit in this space that I'm in right now, because there's been so much that's been going on. To ask for that space and ask for that time for yourself is so essential. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. Not only, you know, this is not, for example, I use myself for example. So I was looking into, okay, for my vacation, do I want to go somewhere new? Do I want to go to a new country? Do I want to go to a new culture? And all of those things were options, but what I ended up settling on, and it's not settling, but what I ended up choosing was going home and going to see my family and spending time with my cousins and with my friends and people that I had kind of put on the back burner, because I was so driven and ambitious and motivated and passionate about the things that it is that I love, i.e. working with you guys, reading charts, pulling charts, filming, working in the apothecary, you know, those types of stuff. So the drive and the ambition is there. But when Mars goes retrograde, and the time period of Mars goes retrograde, it's like we did so much in a small amount of time, and it was all new, it was all different, it was new core groups. I've met new people from the moment that Mars went into the sign of Aquarius, which is amazing, but at the same time, it's so much newness that now it's like, okay, let me kind of go back into things that are like my comfort zone and that feel good to me. Granted, it's not like Mars in Cancer or anything like that, even though the sun is going to be moving through the sign of Cancer, but it's all about, so it does give this element of like comfort and family and friends and nurturing yourself and taking care of yourself. But it's also a chance for you to take a break, take a pause, take a breather, rebuild your energy. Vitality is a huge thing that Mars rules, so you want to make sure that you're eating well, that you're not exhausting yourself. For many of us, we've been taking like stimulants like coffee or tea in order to keep up with all that's been going on, and I'm seeing it in my clients, and I also see it in myself, where it's like, you know, we're tired, we're exhausted. Well, this is the time to kind of scale back on the coffee, scale back on things that are like pushing you to help you to keep up and just restore and rebalance. And as I say this, I'm drinking, what is it that I have? A caramel macchiato, iced caramel macchiato from Starbucks. They do it so well. I just love it. It's delicious and I like it. So, but anyways, Mars retrograde is not a bad thing. It's actually pretty good. It's pretty dope. If you know how to work it for your highest and greatest good. The other thing that I see is Franklin taking a sip from my cafe. What is this again? Oh, caramel macchiato. The other question that I get a lot of times is, Jess, what about starting new projects with Mars retrograde? So the crazy thing with that is that because Mars is retrograde and it works with your drive, your ambition, and your desires, you're going to actually see some old desires, some old motivations, some old ambition that's been lying dormant resurface and reveal itself to you during this time. So it's very tempting to start a new project. But the thing is that without Mars being direct, it's hard for you to carry that project full speed and to keep it going, because at some point Mars will poop out, because when you started that project you didn't have the full support of Mars energy. So throughout the entire phase of Mars retrograde, it's not that you don't want to start a new project, or it's not that you don't want to revisit and start a new project. What you want to do is take that time to plan. What you want to do is take that time to build energy and create a energy around it, create an element around it, create a vibe around it, but don't set things in stone and cement them unless you absolutely have to. The other thing that Mars rules is fighting. So this is a time where you might revisit old conversations or old disagreements and kind of work to repair them. The other thing that I see in a lot of ways is that if you have repressed energy, repressed frustrations, when Mars is retrograde, it has a tendency to kind of bring those up depending on what's going on in your chart and depending on what's going on in the cosmos at that time. If there's a week that has heightened levels of emotion and sensitivities, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I get so excited and then I like choke on my own spit. But if you have energy around you that's heightened sensitivity and heightened emotion, what you'll end up seeing is that people that have repressed this frustration or repressed this disappointment or repressed their anger, this is when it kind of like resurfaces up. So you really want to take your time. You really want to be easy. You don't want to force. You don't want to push, because people, especially when Mars starts aspecting Uranus and Pluto and Saturn, that's when we start seeing problems and breakdowns that have just been built up over time. And again, Mars, when it's retrograde, it's not dealing with just what's in the now. It's like, what has been happening? What have I been holding on to? What have I been, burying under, just like, whatever. Sometimes when you have day-to-day frustrations, instead of dealing with it, you just cover it, cover it and cover it and cover it. And then where does that stuff go? It doesn't just disappear. All right, it sits there and it waits for the perfect moment, and sometimes the perfect moment is like so inconvenient and you just explode. The other thing that I see is Mars rules the knife and sharp objects. So I get this question a lot for people who have medical procedures or doing surgery. I personally, just like as if it was Venus retrograde, let's say if you decide to go under the knife for cosmetic surgery or anything like that, if you can avoid it, I wouldn't do it. Not to say that it's going to be bad, but sometimes healing takes a lot longer, or sometimes you have a scar that's left there that doesn't necessarily have to be there. But if it's or it doesn't have to be as obvious, do you know what I mean? But let's say you have to, let's say it's like mandatory surgery, you'll be fine. But it's because that's Mars taking you to exactly the procedure that you need to do for your health and your well-being and your vitality. Just make sure that you're taking extra time, that you're not trying to force yourself up out of the bed after the surgery, that you give yourself time to heal, and you'll be absolutely fine. But for the most part, just if you can avoid any type of war, if you can avoid any type of conflict, then this is a good time to do it. But that doesn't mean that you ignore repressed feeling and emotion, because that's lying there dormant. And when Mars goes retrograde, it's like, well, now's the time for us to deal with it. Now's the time for us to address it, because this has been sitting here for a while. All right, so let me make sure I didn't miss anything, because I have a tendency to kind of go off. No, I pretty much covered it all. Yep. All right, you guys, so make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, because I am posting intuitive messages all the time. I'm definitely going to be vlogging a lot more as I'm taking a vacation. I'm going to be hanging out with family. I'm going to be recording my travels and where we go and what we do. I'm going to be doing way more day in the life type of videos, and I'm also going to be answering way more questions. Make sure that you're following me on Instagram. That's BehatiLife. I'll probably link it down here, so that if you have questions and things that you want, topics that you want to see on the YouTube channel, I'm more than happy to answer them for you. But until then, I love you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Say bye, boo.